The storm came out of nowhere. Ethan Cole had been flying his small cargo ship through the outer rings of a red dwarf system, carrying old mining parts to a trade station. Space was calm one moment, then wild the next. The navigation system screamed alarms as blue lightning tore across his radar. Static filled his headset. The ship shook like a leaf in a hurricane. "Come on, hold together," he shouted, gripping the controls. The storm wasn't natural. It moved like it was alive. One moment, his sensors showed clear sky. The next, gravity twisted. The stars stretched and vanished. Ethan's ship spun uncontrollably, fire bursting from the engines. He hit the emergency landing sequence and hoped there was ground somewhere below. A blinding white light swallowed everything. When he woke up, he was upside down. The cockpit was shattered, metal torn and smoking. His head throbbed, blood running down his forehead. The ship had crashed in a wide-open field surrounded by tall silver grass that shimmered under two moons. The sky above was purple, not black. It was silent, no birds, no insects, no wind, only the faint hum of something distant. Ethan unbuckled himself and crawled out of the wreckage. His boots sank slightly into the soft ground. The air was breathable, warm and faintly sweet like the smell of fruit. For a moment he thought he might be on a peaceful farming world, but peace never lasted long in the unknown. He grabbed his survival pack and plasma pistol, scanning the horizon. There was movement, shadows between the silver grass, shapes human-shaped. He called out, "Hello? I need help! My ship crashed!" No answer, only silence. Then footsteps. From behind a glowing ridge, figures appeared. They wore long coats and helmets with visors that glowed faintly blue. They surrounded him in seconds, weapons raised. Ethan froze, raising his hands slowly. The visors opened and his heart skipped. Every face staring back at him was a woman. There were at least 10 of them, all armed, all staring with wide eyes. Their armor was sleek but old, like something made decades ago and patched many times. One of them stepped forward, tall and sharp-eyed, with a scar across her cheek. Her voice was calm but cold. "What are you?" she asked. Ethan blinked. "What am I? I'm human, a man. I crash-landed here." The group exchanged quick looks, whispering. Confused murmurs spread between them. A few even laughed, but not in a friendly way. The tall one lowered her weapon slightly, studying him as if he were an animal in a cage. "A man?" she repeated, like testing the sound. "Impossible," Ethan frowned. "What do you mean, impossible?" Before he could finish, another woman rushed forward, her eyes wide with fear and fascination. "He's real. It's not a machine, it's flesh." She reached out to touch his arm before being pulled back by the leader. "Don't touch it," the tall woman snapped. "If it's male, we report it. Right now. Report it. Wait, hey, I'm not it." Ethan protested, stepping back. "I'm a person." But his words meant nothing. Two of them grabbed his arms roughly, their grip strong. One of them pressed a strange device to his neck. It stung like a burn. "For identification," she said flatly. Ethan struggled. "Look, I just need help fixing my ship, all right? I don't want trouble." The leader tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing. "You already brought trouble, stranger." A transport hovered down from the sky, sleek, silent, shaped like a teardrop. A ramp unfolded and Ethan was pushed inside. The walls were glowing white metal, clean and cold. The women surrounded him as the doors sealed shut. "Where are you taking me?" he demanded. "To the capital," the leader said. "The matriarch must see this." The craft lifted off, smooth as silk. Through the window, Ethan saw the land stretch endlessly. Cities built from glass and crystal towers glowing blue, fields of strange plants and skies full of floating platforms. It looked advanced, organized, perfect. But something was missing. Everywhere he looked, factories, patrols, crowds below, he saw only women. Not a single man. His stomach tightened. "Where are all the men?" he whispered. The leader didn't answer. Her jaw clenched. Ethan leaned back against the cold wall, trying to stay calm. His mind spun with questions. Maybe this was a colony gone wrong. Maybe disease wiped out the males. Maybe this planet was never human at all. But then why did they speak his language? Why did they look so much like him? He glanced at the tall woman again. Her name tag read Lyra. She noticed his look and said quietly, "You don't understand what you are." "What do you mean?" "You're a myth," she said. "And myths don't end well when they walk the earth." The word sent a chill down his spine. The transport descended into a city that shone like silver fire under the twin moons. Huge statues of women towered above every building. Warriors, scientists, leaders. The streets below glowed with pale blue lights and crowds gathering to stare up at the descending ship. As Ethan stepped out, hundreds of eyes turned to him. Whispers rippled through the air. A male. It's real. After all these generations. Lyra put a hand on his shoulder, not gently but possessively. Welcome to Virelia, she said. The world of women, and now, our property. Ethan's heart pounded as the crowd pressed closer. Cameras flashed. He was no longer a pilot who crashed. He was a relic, a discovery, maybe even a prisoner. And deep inside, he knew. Whatever this world was, it didn't want to help him. It wanted to keep him. The city of Virelia looked beautiful from above, but once the transport landed, Ethan saw the truth, beauty with chains. Tall glass towers reached the sky, glowing softly with blue light. Streets shimmered like liquid metal, but everything felt too perfect. Every movement was watched. Every person walked in line. Thousands of women in uniform stared at him like he was a wild creature escaped from a cage. Lyra, the tall commander, led him down a long walkway surrounded by guards. People whispered as they passed. Some pointed in shock, others smiled in strange excitement. A little girl tried to run closer, but her mother pulled her back fast, whispering, "Don't go near it." That word again. Ethan clenched his fists. "Do you people ever call anyone by their name?" He muttered. Lyra didn't look back. "You don't have a name here. You're an anomaly." They entered a massive building shaped like a crystal spear, the Central Authority Hall. Inside, the air smelled clean but sharp, like medicine. Holograms floated over their heads showing the planet's history. Scientists, leaders, armies, all women. Ethan noticed not a single male face in any record. Guards pushed him into a glowing circle on the floor. A scanner surrounded him with light. Strange blue rings traced his body, reading every cell, every heartbeat. One of the officers gasped. "He's pure human DNA," she said, almost trembling. "Male, real." "Not synthetic," Lyra nodded slowly, her face unreadable. "So it's true. The myths were real." Ethan frowned. "What myths?" Before Lyra could answer, heavy doors opened. Everyone went silent. A woman entered, older, graceful, and dressed in silver robes. Her hair was white, her eyes glowing faint gold. The guards bowed low. "Lyra did too, matriarch," Lyra said softly. "We found a man." The matriarch walked closer. Her eyes studied Ethan like a scientist studying a dangerous animal. She circled him once slowly, as if trying to decide if he was real. "So," she said at last, "the storm delivered us a relic." Ethan tried to stay calm. "I'm not a relic. My name's Ethan Cole. I'm a pilot. I just crashed here. I don't want trouble. Just a way to fix my ship and leave." Her lips curved in a faint smile. "Leave? You fall from the sky, bring proof of ancient legends, and speak of leaving? No, young male. You've already changed our world by existing." He took a step forward. "I didn't choose to crash here." Instantly, guards raised their weapons. The matriarch raised a hand, and they froze. She studied him again, expression thoughtful. So much energy. So much emotion. "Tell me, Lyra, when was the last time you saw anger? In a man's eyes?" Lyra lowered her gaze. "Never, matriarch. None of us have." Ethan's confusion deepened. "What are you talking about? You've never seen a man before?" The matriarch folded her hands behind her back. "Not in 500 years. The male genome was erased during the War of Rebirth. Males were violent, unstable, destructive. They destroyed worlds, built weapons, caused wars. We created peace by removing them." Ethan's stomach twisted. "You killed your own men?" "Not killed," she said calmly. "Purified. We built a world without greed or competition. Every child born since is female, strong, logical, united." She paused. "Until now." The way she said those words chilled him. Lyra stepped forward. "Matriarch, what do we do with him? He can't stay free. He could disrupt everything we've built." The matriarch turned slowly, her robe whispering across the floor. "He will not be free. No male can be. We will study him, understand him, and then decide his use." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You can't use me." "I'm not property." The matriarch smiled gently, but her eyes were ice. "On Virelia, everything has a purpose. Even you." Guards grabbed his arms again. Ethan tried to fight, but there were too many. They dragged him down a long corridor lined with glass cells. Inside, he saw strange creatures, mutated animals, half-machine hybrids and women wearing devices over their heads, whispering to themselves. Lyra walked beside him in silence. When he looked at her, she avoided his eyes. Finally, he said quietly, "You don't believe what she said, do you? About men being evil?" Lyra hesitated. "Belief doesn't matter here. Obedience does." They reached a steel door. It opened with a hiss. Inside was a white chamber with a single bed, cameras on every wall and no windows. Ethan turned to her, desperate. "You can't lock me up like this. I haven't done anything wrong." For a brief moment, Lyra's eyes softened. Then her voice went cold again. "You already did. You were born male." The door slammed shut. Ethan sank onto the bed, staring at the glowing ceiling. His reflection stared back from the metal walls, tired, bloody, and alone. The air felt heavy, as if the world itself watched him. Outside, he could hear distant voices, guards arguing, scientists taking notes. The hum of machines preparing. He didn't know it yet, but his arrival had already started something unstoppable. On the screens across the city, news broke. A male has appeared. The old balance may return. Some cheered, some panicked. And somewhere in the lower districts, a young scientist named Talia looked up from her lab and whispered, "He's real, and if he's real, maybe everything can change." The next morning, Ethan woke to the soft hum of machines. The walls of his room glowed with slow pulses of blue light. A thin line opened on one side, sliding out a tray of food, silver cubes, a bowl of liquid, and a note that simply said, "Eat. Observe silence." He stared at the food, half amused, half angry. "They treat me like some lab rat," he muttered. A voice came from above, calm and mechanical. "Subject number 712, remain within your quarters. Do not attempt communication outside approved sessions." Ethan sighed and leaned back on the bed. "Yeah, thanks for the hospitality." Minutes passed like hours. He thought about his ship, still burning somewhere in that field, and about the crowd of faces staring at him like he didn't belong in their world. He was used to danger, pirates, storms, broken engines, but this was different. Here he was the danger. Then the door hissed open. Commander Lyra entered, holding a tablet. Her expression was as cold as ever, but something in her eyes was softer now. Tired, maybe conflicted. "You're awake," she said. "Barely," Ethan replied. "You people don't talk much. Is this how you welcome guests?" "You're not a guest," she said flatly. "You're a disruption." She gestured for him to follow. Two guards walked behind them as they entered a long glass corridor. The city stretched below, thousands of women walking in ordered lines, drones flying above, holograms flashing government symbols. It was peaceful, perfect, and lifeless. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked. "To the Hall of Origins," Lyra said. "You'll understand soon." They arrived at a large dome made of dark glass. Inside, hundreds of floating screens displayed ancient records, photos, voices, broken videos. Ethan saw something strange. Men and women working together, laughing, building ships, raising families. But the later screens showed fire, riots, and war. Lyra stopped in front of one massive hologram, a globe showing the entire planet. Red light spread across it like infection spots. "This is our past," she said quietly. 5 centuries ago, the War of Rebirth ended with extinction. A virus released by desperate leaders wiped out every male within weeks. Ethan stared in disbelief. "A virus? That killed only men?" "Yes, the male genome eradication strain, designed by our ancestors to stop endless wars. When the last male died, peace began, or so they believed." He shook his head. "You're saying your people chose to erase half their species?" Lyra's tone was sharp. "They believed it was survival. Women took control, rebuilt the planet, ended the chaos. The matriarchal order was born. Every life since then has been female, balanced, disciplined, controlled." Ethan walked slowly around the room, staring at the history floating before him. "You call that balance? You erased love, family, choice." Her jaw tightened. "We erased pain. Men caused wars, greed, destruction. Our world is better without them." He looked at her, eyes steady. "Then why are you afraid of me?" Lyra froze. For a moment she said nothing. The silence between them spoke louder than words. Then she turned away. "Fear keeps order. That's what keeps us alive." They left the dome and moved into another chamber. This one was full of scientists. Young women in white uniforms studying holograms of his DNA. Ethan saw his face on dozens of screens. Every detail of his biology was being scanned and catalogued. "Stop this," he said, raising his voice. "You can't experiment on me." The lead scientist didn't even look up. "We're not experimenting. We're preserving," Lyra frowned. "Preserving?" The scientist, a short woman with amber eyes, smiled faintly. "If his DNA is stable, we can extract what we lost. We could create new generations. The matriarch's order would evolve." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You mean restore men?" "Yes," the scientist said softly. "Maybe that's what the universe wants." Ethan stared at her. She was younger, braver, and her badge read Talia. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Curiosity, defiance, maybe hope. Before anyone could say more, alarms suddenly blared. The scientist's face fell. "Security override. Matriarch signal detected." The matriarch appeared on a large hologram above them. Her voice echoed through the lab. "Commander Lyra, terminate all unapproved testing. The male is not to be used for genetic restoration. He is to be relocated to Facility 12 at dawn." Talia's eyes widened. "Facility 12? That's a containment site." Ethan turned to Lyra. "What's that supposed to mean?" Lyra looked away. "It's where dangerous things go, forever." Ethan stepped forward, his hands clenched. "You can't keep me locked up forever." The matriarch's hologram flickered closer. "You misunderstand, human. We're not keeping you locked up. We're keeping our world safe from you." The signal vanished. Silence filled the room. Guards moved in again, surrounding him. Talia whispered to herself, "They can't hide the truth forever." Ethan turned to her. "What truth?" She glanced at the others, then leaned closer. "The virus, they didn't lose control of it. They created it on purpose. To erase men. Completely. And if the matriarch finds out I told you that, I'll vanish like the others." Ethan's heart pounded. The air felt colder now. The truth burned in his mind. This wasn't a peaceful world at all. It was a lie built on silence and fear. As the guards led him back toward his cell, Talia's voice echoed in his ears. "If you want to live, find me again. I can help you escape." For the first time since the crash, Ethan felt something powerful rising inside him. Not just fear, but resolve. They could call him a myth, a relic, or a threat. But he was still human. And humanity, once awakened, never stayed in chains for long. Night fell over Veralia. The twin moons cast a pale light through the city's glass towers. Drones patrolled the skies, scanning for motion. The streets were empty, too quiet, too perfect, too afraid. Deep underground, far below the shining capital, whispers moved through the shadows. And in one of those shadows, Ethan Cole sat in his cell, staring at the door that refused to open. He'd been counting the seconds since the matriarch's order. They said he would be moved to Facility 12 at dawn, a place where dangerous things disappeared forever. He didn't plan to find out what that meant, but there was no escape. The walls were smooth, glowing metal, no corners, no vents, only cameras that blinked like watchful eyes. Then suddenly the lights flickered, once, twice, and the door hissed open. Ethan froze. "What the—" A figure stepped inside, holding a small torch. It was Talia, the young scientist from the lab. Her face was half covered by a mask, her eyes sharp but nervous. "Get up," she whispered. "We don't have much time." Ethan stood quickly. "You're helping me?" "Yes, but if anyone finds out, we're both dead." She handed him a small black jacket and a device that looked like a bracelet. "Put this on. It scrambles heat signatures. The drones won't see you for a few minutes." He slipped it on, still trying to understand. "Why help me, Talia? You said this world would never allow my kind." She looked around the hallway before answering. "Because it's not my world anymore. It's a lie we've all been forced to live in, and maybe you're the proof we needed, that the truth still matters." They moved fast through narrow tunnels beneath the facility. Pipes hissed with steam. The air smelled like metal and oil. Above them, alarms hadn't sounded yet, but Talia knew it was only a matter of time. "How do you know these passages?" Ethan asked quietly. She gave a faint smile. "I work in genetics, not security. But you learn things when you don't trust your leaders." They reached a circular door with strange markings. Talia pressed her palm to a scanner, whispering, "Override code Delta 3. The door opened with a deep rumble, revealing a hidden elevator. They stepped in. The walls were covered in vines and roots that had broken through the old steel. Ethan frowned. "This doesn't look like government tech." It's not, she said. This tunnel leads to the lower sectors, the old cities from before the virus. They're abandoned. Officially, the elevator shook as it descended. Faint voices echoed below, hundreds of them. The smell of oil, smoke, and human life grew stronger. When the doors opened, Ethan stepped out into a completely different world. The underground city was alive, dimly lit by glowing fungus and old generators. Women in patched clothes moved between makeshift homes carrying tools and weapons. Children played near broken machines. Murals covered the walls, paintings of stars, of ships, and of men. Talia led him through the crowd. "Welcome to the rebellion," she said quietly. "We call ourselves the Restorers. We believe the matriarch's history is a lie." People stopped to stare at Ethan. Their eyes widened. Some gasped. A few even touched his arm in disbelief. He's real. A man alive. After all this time, a tall woman with dark skin and cybernetic eyes approached them. Her voice was rough but calm. "Talia, you've done something dangerous." "I know," Talia replied. "But if we're ever going to prove the truth, we need him." The woman studied Ethan. "I'm Captain Rhea, leader of the Restorers. We've been waiting for something like this, for someone like you." Ethan crossed his arms. "You keep saying that. Why? What can I possibly do?" Rhea's eyes gleamed. "You can remind them what they erased. The matriarch controls history. But with your DNA, we can rebuild the archives. We can show the world how it really began." Ethan shook his head. "You want to use me too?" "No," Rhea said firmly. "We want to free you. But we need proof before they erase you again." Talia placed a small data chip in his hand. "This has everything. The truth about the virus, the genetic code they hid, and your scan results. If the people see it, they'll know what the matriarch did." Before Ethan could answer, the ground suddenly shook. A siren blared above them. "Security breach detected." A metallic voice echoed through the tunnels. Talia's face went pale. "They found us." Rhea drew her weapon. "They must have tracked your signal." "Everyone, prepare for defense!" The rebellion camp exploded into motion. People grabbed rifles, sealed doors, and pulled children into shelters. Red lights flashed through the tunnels. Ethan turned to Talia. "What now?" She met his gaze, calm despite the chaos. "Now you do what humans always do, you survive." Explosions rocked the tunnels. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ethan grabbed Talia's arm and ran. Drones burst through the upper vents, firing blue stun bolts that scorched the metal walls. They dashed through smoke-filled corridors. Rhea shouted behind them, "Get him to the escape tram!" They jumped onto a small transport platform as it roared to life, racing through narrow rails deep under the city. The walls blurred past in streaks of light. Ethan gasped for air. "We can't keep running forever." Talia turned to him, eyes fierce. "No, but we can run long enough to show them the truth." Behind them, explosions echoed like thunder. The rebellion had begun, and this time the world of women would learn that humanity's story wasn't over. The night sky above Varelia burned with searchlights. Every drone, every patrol, every camera now hunted one name: Ethan Cole, the first man seen in 5 centuries. The matriarch had declared him a threat to order, a disruption to purity. His image glowed across every screen, every tower, every drone network. Rewards were offered. Citizens were told to report sightings instantly, but Ethan and Talia were already gone. The escape tram had taken them miles beyond the capital, into the outer wilds, a region no one visited anymore. The cities ended here, replaced by mountains of black stone and forests that glowed faintly with bioluminescent vines. Broken satellites hung like ghosts in the violet sky. They stopped the tram near an old transport station half buried in vines. Talia jumped down first, scanning the area with her wrist device. "No drones in range. For now, we're safe." Ethan followed, still catching his breath. His clothes were torn and dust covered his face. "You said that 5 tunnels ago," she gave a tired smile. "And we're still alive, aren't we?" He laughed softly, but the sound faded quickly. Around them, the forest moved, leaves glowing blue, whispering softly as if alive. "What is this place?" "This used to be the frontier," Talia explained, "where the old colonies tried to expand before the virus. After the purge, the government sealed it off. Too much history buried here." Ethan looked around. "History's all you've got left. Seems your people built a perfect world by erasing half of it." Talia's gaze lowered. "You think I don't know that?" she whispered. They walked in silence through the glowing trees. Strange creatures watched from the shadows, cat-like things with glassy skin that reflected the light. The air buzzed with low energy like static before a storm, then a faint hum broke the silence. Talia froze. "Drone patrol! Get down!" They dropped behind a fallen tree. High above, a silver orb drifted through the branches, scanning with red beams. Ethan held his breath, the beam sliding just inches from his face. The device on his wrist flickered, its stealth field weakening. The drone paused, then drifted away. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Close one," Talia nodded. "They're adjusting frequencies. The longer we stay, the easier we are to find." She turned to him suddenly. "We need to reach the old observatory in the northern ridge. My contact there can transmit your DNA data to every underground network. Once the truth spreads, the matriarch can't stop it." "Then let's move," Ethan said. Hours passed. The forest thickened. They crossed rivers that glowed faintly green, past ruins of metal towers where vines grew through glass. Ethan found himself staring at Talia as she moved, focused, fearless. She wasn't like the others. She cared. Finally, they reached a rocky ridge overlooking a wide valley. In the center stood an old observatory, its dome cracked but still glowing faintly. Talia smiled. "We made it." But before they could take another step, a sharp sound cut through the air. A plasma bolt. The ground exploded beside them. Ethan tackled Talia down just in time as energy blasts lit up the night. From the tree line, soldiers in silver armor advanced, weapons raised. Drones swarmed overhead. "Run!" Talia shouted. They sprinted downhill, weaving between rocks. Plasma fire scorched the ground around them. Ethan grabbed Talia's hand, pulling her behind a crashed transport. "She said they couldn't track us," Ethan shouted. "She lied. Or the matriarch has better tech than I thought," Talia yelled back. A loud boom shook the earth as a gunship descended from the clouds. Its engines roared, searchlights cutting through the mist. A voice thundered from its speakers. "By order of the matriarch, surrender the mail. Resistance will be punished." Ethan clenched his teeth. "Not happening." He looked at Talia. "You trust me?" She frowned. "Why?" "Because we're not dying here." He grabbed a metal canister from the wreck beside them, old emergency fuel. With a flick of his blaster, he ignited it and threw it toward the approaching soldiers. The explosion lit up the forest like a second sun. Trees burst into flame, smoke swirling through the night. In the chaos, they ran again toward the observatory. Inside, the building was half destroyed. Dust hung in the air and ancient machinery hummed weakly. A cracked telescope pointed toward the stars that hadn't been seen in generations. Talia ran to an old console and started typing. "I can still use this system. If I upload your genetic code, every data stream across the old networks will carry it." Ethan watched the flames outside creeping closer. "You'd risk your life for that?" She looked at him. "Not for data, for truth." The door behind them shook as the soldiers closed in. Sparks flew. Ethan moved closer to her, voice low but steady. "When I crashed here, I thought I was the only one lost. Turns out this whole planet is." Talia gave a faint smile. "Then maybe you were sent to help us find our way back." Before he could answer, the door burst open. Lyra stepped through, armor scorched, weapon drawn, her eyes locked on Ethan. "Don't move," she ordered. Talia froze. "Commander, please. He's not your enemy." Lyra's face was unreadable. "That's what they said before the wars." Ethan raised his hand slowly. "You know I didn't cause this," Lyra hesitated. The flames reflected in her eyes, and for a moment something changed. Doubt. Then the observatory shook violently as the fuel fire reached the building's base. "The floor cracked! Go!" Talia shouted. Ethan grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the back exit. Lyra reached out, then lowered her weapon. "Run, human," she said softly. "Run before I change my mind." They sprinted into the night as the observatory exploded behind them, lighting up the valley like dawn. From miles away, drones watched the smoke rise and sent their report to the capital. Subject Ethan Cole escaped. Rebellion confirmed. The forest burned behind them, lighting the horizon with an orange glow. Ethan and Talia ran until the smoke turned to mist and the sound of the explosions faded into the distance. Their bodies ached, their lungs stung, but they couldn't stop. Not yet. Not while the entire planet hunted them. They finally reached a quiet valley filled with strange glowing plants. The air shimmered with soft blue light. A small river wound through the center, calm and silver. Here, for the first time in days, there was peace. Talia dropped to her knees beside the water, gasping for air. Ethan knelt beside her. "You okay?" "I will be," she said between breaths. "You really like to make enemies fast." He smiled faintly. "Guess it's one of my talents." They both laughed quietly for a moment. It felt good, like they'd stolen something forbidden from the chaos above. But when Talia looked up at the stars, her expression changed. "The peace faded. They'll never stop," she said softly. "The matriarch won't rest until you're gone." Ethan's tone hardened. "Then we stop her first." He stood and looked at the sky. "You said you knew the truth, the real story behind the virus. I think it's time you tell me." Talia hesitated. She looked at the water, her reflection rippling in its glow. "I wasn't supposed to know. The data was sealed centuries ago, but I found fragments hidden in the old archives." Ethan crouched beside her. "Fragments of what?" She took a deep breath. "The virus didn't start as a weapon. It started as a cure," he frowned. "A cure for what?" "For humanity itself," she said quietly. "Back then our ancestors feared extinction, overpopulation, wars, famine. So the scientists designed a biocode, a genetic control program that could make future generations calmer, more logical, less violent. It was supposed to balance emotions. But the government twisted it." Ethan's face darkened. "They changed it?" "Yes. The last council, led by the matriarch's ancestors, decided that the only way to end conflict forever was to erase the ones they blamed for it. The virus was altered to remove every Y chromosome on the planet." She paused, her voice trembling. "They called it the cleansing." Ethan felt cold inside. "So your people murdered their own sons, their fathers. Every man." Talia nodded slowly. "And then they rewrote history. They said it was a disease caused by men's aggression, not the result of power and fear. Every record of the old world was destroyed. The few who resisted were silenced. That's why we grew up believing men were monsters." Ethan clenched his fists. All of this perfect world, built on genocide. Talia's voice softened. "The worst part is the virus didn't just kill. It changed us. It rewired emotions, made everyone easier to control. Loyalty became instinct. Obedience replaced curiosity. But somehow some of us were born different. We question things. We dream. The rebellion started with those people." She looked at him then, eyes shining in the soft blue light. "When I saw you in the lab, I realized the truth. You're not just human. You're the key to reversing what they did. Your DNA is untouched, pure. If we use it, we can fix what was broken." Ethan stared at her. "You mean, bring men back?" "Yes, not just men. Balance. The real kind. The kind we lost." Before he could respond, the ground shook faintly. A low hum filled the valley. Talia's eyes widened. "They found us again." Drones appeared in the sky, their light scanning the forest. Ethan grabbed Talia's hand. "Come on, into the caves." They sprinted across the valley, diving into a narrow opening between rocks. The tunnel was dark and damp, the walls glowing faintly with mineral light. Far behind, the hum of the drones grew louder, echoing through the stone. Ethan guided Talia deeper inside. "We'll hide until they pass." But as they moved deeper, they found something unexpected. A massive underground chamber filled with old machines long abandoned and covered in dust. In the center stood a large cylindrical pod glowing with faint energy. Talia's breath caught. "I've seen this in the archives. It's one of the original research chambers from before the purge." Ethan approached carefully. "Still working after all these years?" The pod pulsed once, as if answering. Then a projection flickered to life, a hologram of an old scientist, her voice echoing softly. "If you are seeing this message, it means the virus was released. Humanity has fallen, but the failsafe remains. The genetic seed of the uncorrupted human lies within the stars. Only unity between both sides can rebuild what was lost." The hologram vanished. Silence filled the cave. Talia whispered. She knew. They tried to stop it. Ethan turned to her. So the storm that brought me here, it wasn't random. That pod sent a signal. It called me. Her eyes widened. You mean, you were meant to find us? Before he could reply, a voice echoed from the tunnel entrance. Cold, commanding. Indeed, he was. They spun around. Commander Lyra stepped into the light, armor scorched, but her eyes sharper than ever. Behind her, armed guards filled the passage. Talia raised her blaster. Don't do this, Lyra. You've seen what your leaders are hiding. Lyra stepped closer, her weapon lowered but her tone icy. I've seen it, and that's why I can't let him live. If this truth spreads, everything we've built will collapse. Ethan stepped forward. Maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Then you've chosen your side, human. She raised her weapon. But before she could fire, the ancient machines roared to life, blinding light flooding the cave. Talia shouted, Run! Ethan grabbed her hand, pulling her through a side tunnel as the chamber erupted with energy. Behind them, Lyra's voice echoed in the chaos. You can't change what's already written. But Ethan didn't look back. For the first time, he knew why he was here. He wasn't just a survivor. He was the reminder of everything humanity was meant to be. And now, he would fight to bring it back. The blast from the ancient machine echoed for miles. Rocks fell. Dust filled the tunnels and glowing blue light poured out from the old pod like liquid fire. Ethan and Talia stumbled through the narrow passage, coughing as the ground trembled beneath their feet. Behind them, the chamber where they had stood moments ago was collapsing. The old machine had awakened something deep inside the planet, something buried for centuries. When they finally emerged into the open air, the night sky was filled with strange light, pillars of blue energy shooting upward, piercing the clouds. The ground hummed under their boots. The planet itself seemed alive, responding to the truth that had been buried for 500 years. Talia looked up, eyes wide. It's broadcasting. The machine is transmitting across every frequency. Ethan frowned. Broadcasting what? The truth, she whispered. Every network, every drone, every city. They're all seeing it now. Across Virilia, every screen came alive. The message from the ancient scientist echoed in every home, every station, every city tower. The virus was not nature's cure. It was human fear. Balance cannot exist in silence. Only unity restores life. The citizens froze, watching images they had never seen before. Men and women working side by side. Families laughing, ships being built. And finally, the moment of the purge. Soldiers in silver armor releasing clouds of red mist over cities. The truth could no longer be hidden. Back in the valley, Ethan and Talia climbed the ridge, the glow of the broadcast lighting the sky behind them. The chase had stopped. Drones hovered above but didn't fire. They were receiving new orders, or maybe no orders at all. Talia turned to him, her voice shaking. You did it, Ethan. You changed everything. He shook his head. We did. Before they could say more, movement caught their eyes. From the far edge of the forest, Lyra appeared, armor cracked, her weapon gone, but her pride still intact. Ethan raised his blaster cautiously, but she didn't reach for hers. She walked toward them slowly, her face unreadable. I should kill you both, she said quietly. But it wouldn't change anything now. Talia stepped forward. You saw the truth. You know what the matriarch did? Lyra looked at the sky. I was raised to believe that men destroyed the world, that our order was peace. But seeing this, she paused, her voice trembling. It feels like waking up from a dream and realizing it was a cage. Ethan lowered his weapon. Then help us fix it. Lyra stared at him for a long moment, then finally she nodded. The matriarch won't surrender. She'll silence the entire planet before she admits she lied. Then we make sure she can't, Ethan said. They moved quickly through the night toward the Central Authority Tower, the heart of the matriarch's control. The city glowed beneath them like a sea of glass and fire. Panic spread through the streets. Sirens wailed, Drones hovered aimlessly, and the citizens argued in confusion and fear. The truth had broken their perfect order. Inside the tower, the halls were empty. The matriarch's voice echoed through the speakers, calm but trembling. Do not believe the lies. The mail is an illusion. Order must remain. Purity must remain. Ethan reached the central chamber, the same one where he had first been scanned, labeled, and imprisoned. The matriarch stood waiting, her silver robe flowing, her eyes glowing faint gold. You brought chaos, she said. You've undone 500 years of peace. Ethan stepped closer. Peace built on lies isn't peace, it's slavery. She tilted her head. You think you're saving us? You'll bring back war, violence, division. Humans always destroy themselves. Ethan looked her in the eyes. Maybe. But at least they live before they die. At least they choose. The matriarch raised her hand, energy crackling around her fingers. But before she could strike, Lyra stepped between them, her weapon aimed at her own leader. Enough, Lyra said. We're done killing truth. The matriarch's eyes widened. You betray me? I serve Virelia, Lyra said softly. And Virelia deserves to know what it really is. The moment hung in the air, silent, fragile. Then the matriarch's power flickered and died. The light in her eyes dimmed as the entire city's network shut down, overloaded by the truth broadcast. Talia's voice trembled as she looked around. It's over. Ethan shook his head. No, it's beginning. Days later, the world began to change. The statues of women that once lined the streets were taken down, replaced by symbols of unity. 2 hands, one male, one female, joined together. The matriarch's rule was dismantled, and the restorers rose to rebuild the planet as equals. Talia worked to restore the genetic balance, combining Ethan's DNA with the preserved archives. For the first time in centuries, true human embryos, male and female, grew in the labs. One evening, as the twin suns set over a calmer, quieter world, Ethan stood on the edge of the rebuilt observatory. The stars stretched endlessly above him. Talia joined him, her smile gentle. You kept your promise, she said. He looked at her and smiled. No, we kept humanity's. They stood together as the first dawn of a new age broke across Virelia, a world finally ready to remember what it meant to be whole. And as the light touched his face, Ethan whispered the words that would echo across generations. Freedom isn't gendered, it's human.